And so we will go ahead and get started. It's 10:02. I would like to introduce our very special guest. We have Mr. Elijah Ridgway.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
And Mr. Olajuwon Ridgway, I want to give the proper introduction for him. Mr. Ridgway is a certified private wealth advisor from the Yale School of Management and has over 11 years of experience in helping Christian families organize their finances and steward God's wealth. We are delighted and excited to welcome Mr. Olajuwon Ridgway. Mr. Ridgway, take it away, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I definitely appreciate everything for bringing me on and having me talk to them about the subject is really near and dear to my heart. So, I think you wanted me to kind of say a little bit of something about myself. So, originally, I say I'm from everywhere but nowhere. I was born in Texas. I was raised in California. I moved out to Louisiana to go to Grambling State University, historically black college, which I really loved. I moved out to France and I got married in Arizona, and now I'm back in Louisiana. So, traveling, meeting new people, learning about new cultures is something that has really helped me as an individual. And I say all that to say this is that when you have a strong family unit, people that you care about, no matter where you go in the world, they're always there to support. So no matter where you go, be kind to people because you never know how long you're going to be there. So a little background about me. I'm the baby of four children. My mother was actually a teenage mother herself. So at the tender age of 17, she got pregnant with her first child, and she had to learn the ropes. And it was very difficult for her, cutting coupons, making sure that she's saving for the baby. And fast forward 20 years, she was teaching me the same idea. I was like, listen, you're going to be something in this world. And she poured so much of her life into me that as I grew up, I tried to give back the things that she sacrificed for me. And I think that as a teenage mother, I think when she was starting, she thought that she didn't know everything. But now, as a parent, she understands no one knows everything. Everyone is continuously learning. She used resources. She took a job at a daycare center to learn how to raise children, how to rear children, how to use all the resources that they use. So, I just like to give back. So that's why I'm here today, is because we want to help the people that were in our situation as well. Because there may be a little kid out there right now who is thinking like, you know what? I want to be something when I grow up, and you may feel inadequate, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it or give them the things that they need. You will. Babies don't need that much. They need love. That's what they need. They don't necessarily need money. They don't need status. They need love and attention, and they'll blossom into anything that you encourage them to be. So that's why I'm here today. So that's my little
Living proof
backstory.
of that.
Yeah, living proof that, love conquers all. My mom loved me regardless of what I became. And as I grew up, I just wanted to make sure I achieved the things necessary to make her proud. Because she gave up a lot of things in life so I can have it. So I'm really appreciative.
Amen. Thank you for that, Mr. Ridgway. And I know your mama's proud.
Oh,
I would be a proud mama if they were my son. So you can go right ahead, sir, and then we'll have questions and answers after.
sure. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to share this presentation. So this is me. So bear with me. Let's start the slideshow here. So, as I said before, I am the owner of AB Ridgeway Wealth Management. It's a Christian investment firm where we help Christian parents with adult children help manage their finances. Once again, it's not really about us. It's really about our legacy and things that we leave behind. So, whether it's our houses or it's our cars, we make sure it gets to the people that it needs to get to. And as Christian investors, we need help. We need a lot of help when it comes to making sure that our children understand finances, and that's at all ages. It's not just when you're 40 or when you're 50 or 60 when you're about to retire. They say that education, our children form ideas around money as young as 7 years old. Seven. The concept of money buying candy. Going to the store and understanding that if I give this dollar bill, I can get cookies, I can get chips. So we want to make sure that we are training them in the way they should go up so they can manage their money when they get older. So let's get into the presentation here. I call this the four financial season and how navigating finances as a teenage mother. If I go too fast, please forgive me. We're going to have a Q&A after this. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll address those right at the end. I think you're going to learn something. So what I'm going to do is slow down. I'm going to take it step by step, but feel free to enter that information as necessary. So let's start here. Before I start the presentation, one thing I like to talk about are qualities of a Christian investor. And these things we need to master before we start talking about finances in general. And one of the things I've recognized of Christian investors is that they recognize God openly. So when you talk to them, they say, God provided. I trust in God. I have faith. So they recognize them as the sole driver of their success, not themselves, not their friends, not their families, but God. They turn to God for salvation, for guidance, for an encouraging word, all those things they recognize. Also, they created faith based goals, meaning they didn't want to just be rich, they didn't want to just drive a car. They want to make an impact. They want to raise their children. They needed money to pay for their education or for their kids' education. They want to pay for food for family and to help donate. Those were their goals. So it says in James chapter 4 that you don't get what you prayed for because you asked for things for your own personal gain. So these people prayed for other people and other things. Another thing, they were patient. That means that they didn't think they were going to be successful tomorrow or next week. They knew it was going to take years and sometimes even a lifetime, but they were patient. Also, they were grateful. They loved their life, no matter what position it took, because they knew that growing up and life itself evolves. It grows into different things. So they are very grateful for the ins and outs, even the ups and downs, because they learned a lot of great lessons. They also smile. And that's a big thing for me. So, smiling changes your mood. So, to be able to smile even through tough times and great times helps you move forward. Also, they knew God would provide for them, that they had faith. So, they worked hard and then they had faith that God was going to provide for them in the future. Also, they spoke about God's plan. A lot of times we talk about God's decree. We talk about what he's going to do in our lives or that God owns it all and God is going to guide us, right? But they also talked about God's timing. They understood that God doesn't always give us what we want, day one. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes God is preparing you to receive that blessing. And last but not least, teamwork. The ability to work with other resources and people to accomplish their goal. We cannot do this ourselves. So you just being here proves that you are willing to have teamwork, to work with other people to guide you through this thing we call life. And Miss Regina is a sole example of what that looks like. She's providing this resource free of charge for you to grow. So these are the qualities we're looking for. So regardless of what your bank account says, this is where you're going to be rich and righteous. If you can master these 8 things, no matter what amount of money that you have, you'll have a good life. You'll be happy. So let's talk about the first level. And the first level is actually debt management. Now, I talk about debt management because a lot of people have it. Americans are $1 trillion in debt. 1 trillion. That means that a majority of us are living beyond our means, and I don't want this to happen to you. So here are some questions that we should ask ourselves. What do I need to begin this journey to establish credit? And what's credit? Maybe as a teenage mother, you may not know what credit is. Credit is really about your faith or trust. So, credit is where someone will give you money because they trust you to pay it back. That's credit. So, you don't have money, you go ask for it, and people pay you. Now, what credit does is that if you don't pay your money back, your trust and your credit goes down. But if you pay it back, your trust and your credit goes up. That's the basic of the credit system. So you have to ask yourself, If Americans are $1 trillion in debt, what is happening? Well, what's happening is people are borrowing money, but they're not paying it back. So we want to start very early about when we borrow money or we borrow things, we want to make sure that we pay them back because it builds trust. So the second one is, what are the dangers of credit cards? Now, this is a hard example for me to kind of talk about because there's a lot of dangers to credit cards because credit really runs the bloodline of our society. So what that means is that if you don't have good credit, it's very hard to get different things. So for example, if you don't have good credit, it's hard to get a house. If you don't have good credit, it's hard to get a car. If you don't have good credit, it's hard to even rent an apartment. The credit is our way to determine how trustworthy someone is. So when you think of a credit card, don't think of it as something that has free money because that's not what it is. A credit card is something that's going to help you build trust with other people and trust with yourself. So I think me and Regina were talking earlier, and we were talking about when you go to college or when you go to these schools, as soon as you turn 18, basically, what happens are these credit card companies, they start to prey on you. They start to give you free money. They know that you need cash, and what they do, they give you a credit card. They give you a credit card. But we need the credit card, but how we use it is going to determine how successful we are. We're going to talk about that a little bit later here. So here are 3 tips to help you kind of manage your credit card and to manage your debt. So what is debt? So if you've been listening, then you know what debt is. Debt is when you borrow money but you don't pay it back. So that means debt. So if I borrow $5 from you and I don't pay it back, I am $5 in debt. And this is very important because how much debt you have will determine, once again, all the things you can do in life. Let me ask you this, and or you can ask yourself this here. When you borrow money from one person and you don't pay it back, what does that person do? They go tell somebody else. Hey, so and so owes me $20. They haven't paid me back. Then you borrow money from someone else and you don't pay them back. Then what do? They tell other people. So now what's happening to your reputation? It's going down. Now, when you go to that third person to ask them for money, do you think they're willing to give you money or they're not willing to give you money? Most likely, they're not willing to give you money because you have not proven that you're trustworthy for borrowing money. And that's what debt is. So, how do we fix our finances? How do we start? And one of the first things we need to know is how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. And I don't know how many of you have a bank account. I don't know if anyone, maybe just has cash on hand, but this is what you're going to do. I want you for the next week or so, I want you to write down everything that you buy. Anything. If it's a pack of gum, it could be tickets to the movies. It could be, maybe putting some gas in your car. But I want you to write down everything that you do. What this is going to do is going to show you everything that you're spending your money on. And this is going to tell you a lot about what you are and what you're doing. And I want you to have 2 categories here. Once you have the whole list of everything that you spend your money on, I want you to write 2 categories. One, nice to have, and then the next one is need to have. And I'm gonna give you an example between what those two are. As human beings, we need food. True or false? We need food. That's a need to have. Having your food delivered through DoorDash and Postmates and other places like that, that's a nice to have. So if you're spending $10 on a meal, you need to spend that money. But if you're spending $15 on DoorDash, that's a nice to have. So when we distinguish between what are nice to haves and what are needs to have, then we can have a better idea of where our money is going. So if you need an extra $15 and you realize you're spending $15 at DoorDash, what can you do? You could take off the DoorDash. And we could do that with all of our finances. And we could figure out what we really need so we can have money in our pocket. But you're thinking, Mr. Ridgway, I don't know. I don't want to write a spreadsheet. How am I going to track it? Sometimes I buy stuff. Man, what if I forget? What can I do? Well, we love technology, don't we? Well, number three is download an app to track your spending. So, a lot of us know how to get on Instagram, we know how to get on TikTok. Here, you can go to a place like mint.com. I put it here on the presentation. You can go to mint.com. You can get a free account. You can link your bank account, and it will show you all the transactions that you are doing. So, me and Regina were talking, and she says, well, why is it important to track your spending? Well, I put this here. Every dollar given to a company is one less dollar that doesn't go to your child. And that is very important because sometimes we're going to want to buy things that we want. We're going to see that new shirt. We're going to see those new pair of pants. We're going to see those new shoes. And we're going to think to ourselves, we want it. But when you're thinking about tracking your spending, you have to think, if I can stop one extra dollar from going to Postmates or to DoorDash or to one of these nice to haves, that's more money that goes to my child, and they're going to feel more secure, and you're going to feel more secure too. Okay. So here are some things to consider. When you are using your credit card, you are making what they call micro loans. The micro loans is very, very small. You're borrowing money at a very, very, very low price point. Bubble gum, soda, chips. Maybe, like I said before, you're putting gas in your car. You are borrowing money from the bank. And that's why we have to be very careful about how much we're spending because you don't want to spend money you don't have. So, what do you use credit cards for? You use credit cards to once again build trust and to give you 10 to 14 days to pay. Now, some of you may have a job, some of you may be working, some of you may still be in school. So, at this point, having a credit card may not be in your best interest until you start making money. So, be very careful of even using your parents' credit card or maybe a family member's credit card because once again, this can really hurt them financially and it can really hurt you financially as well. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one about credit history. Well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna talk about credit history here real briefly. Credit history makes up about 15% of your credit score. So, what's a credit score? Remember, I told you that how you deal with credit tells other people how trustworthy you are? Well, the same thing happens with your credit score. Credit score is like a number. So, imagine if you borrowed money from somebody and when you didn't pay them back, they lowered your number. And let's say everyone starts out at 800 and it's written on your forehead. Every time you don't pay someone back, that number drops. So the next time you ask for something, guess what? Somebody goes, you have a 200 score. I'm not loaning you money. But imagine you have an 800, which is a perfect score, 850. When you borrow money, people are going to say, that guy's trustworthy. Here, he pays people back. That's what credit history is. So when you think about using credit cards, always think, I want to make this last as long as possible. I want to be trustworthy for as long as possible. And that means paying back your debts. So let's move on here briefly to savings accounts or to savings in general. So the first tip is you need to determine when you need the money and adjust your balance accordingly. Now, I know many of you have young children, and these children are going to be growing up in a few years, like sometimes 15, sometimes 10, 5 years, or whatever it may be. That is a long time to save, and that's great. That's the wonderful thing that you have being teenage mothers is that you have a long time for your children to grow up and a long opportunity for you to save. Now, we want to figure out what we want to do. Do we want to send them to school? Do we want to make sure they have daycare? All these things are going to matter. Some of you may have babysitters. Like me, I used to go to my grandmother's house on the weekend. I didn't understand why, but I understand now as an adult. My parents didn't have money for daycare, so after school I would go there, or on the weekends I would spend maybe a day or two so they can go work some extra shifts. And I didn't know that at the time, but once again, they adjusted their time and their schedules and they saved money during those times when they had free daycare, when they had free resources, so they can have more money for me when I grew older. Number two, real briefly here, how much should I save and what formula can I use? So a lot of people ask me, how much is enough, Mr. Ridgway? Like, I don't know how much to save. I don't even know what saving is. So I tell them a very simple rule. It's right here: 50, 30, and 20. And you could do this at all ages. So 50% goes to your needs. Remember that list we made about things that you have to have? That's 50%. 50% of all the money that you have should go to your have to haves. Things that you need: food, water, shelter. 30% goes to what you want. That means if you want to go shopping, if you want to go hang out with friends, that's fine. And 20% goes to savings. Remember that account that I said that we need to open? Um, Building that cash flow, that is the 20%. And I hope I'm not using these technical words here. Like I said, sometimes I can get into the finance. So let me say this over again. 50% goes to the things that you have to have: your food, water, and shelter. 30 goes to your fun stuff. And then 20, you're going to save. You're going to save that money and put it somewhere. This is a good ratio. Now, I don't know if many of you are understanding what ratios, but all you need to do is multiply how much you have in. Let's say you have an income of $100. Let's make this very easy. Okay. I give you $100. How much is going to go to your food, water, and shelter? $50. How much is going to go to fun stuff? $30. How much of that money are you going to save? $20. So for every $100 you make, that's exactly how you're going to distribute it. So you go, well, how am I going to keep trap it? How am I going to keep account of that? Well, what you can do is you can actually create envelopes. So when you get $100, break it up, put 50 in one envelope, put 30 in another envelope, and then put 20 in another envelope. That way, all the money that's supposed to go to your needs, to your wants, and your savings are all in the nice little envelope. Perfect. So, number three, if you don't want to keep it envelope, maybe you're scared to have cash around the house, or maybe you're not in an environment where keeping cash is appropriate, you can open up a bank account with Chase. And I did this as well. I'm gonna see if I can maybe share. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I'm gonna go to Chase for a second here. Hold on one second. Hopefully, can y'all see this? Hopefully, y'all can see this. This is Chase First Banking. It's a debit card for kids. There's no monthly service fee. It's designed for kids 6 to 12, and it's also available for people 6 to 17. It works just like a regular bank account. You'll be able to see all your transactions, and also you can control your spending. So this is a great opportunity for you to get your first chance at a banking account with very low risk. So we talked about um, so we talked about credit cards and the predatory aspect of credit cards. Well, with a bank account, you can make sure you're not spending more than what you need, and it's a very secure way to track your spending. Okay, so let's go here. So as we kind of wrap up, we have about 13 more minutes left here. So there's some things that we want to consider. When you're saving, you need to think about, what are you saving for? And for many of you on this call, you're saving for your child. That should be the main goal, the main motivator of why you are doing this. So you may be thinking, I can't go out with friends. They're like, why can't you go out? I'm saving for my kid. I want to make sure that they have food, water, shelter. I want to make sure they get a good education. Keeping that in mind will drive you and help you through the tough times, because, brothers and sisters, it's hard. It's hard to save. It is. It's very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But when you have something as precious as a child in your hands, in your arms, looking at you in the face, trusting you, it's easy. It's like, you know what? I want this child to be the best child that it can be. So, how can we do this? Let's go back to the method again. This is how you build your savings. Remember the envelope situation I told you for every $100? That's what we're going to do. We're going to take that $100, take our cash, we're going to get the right amount of bills, and we're going to put these in little envelopes. And you can label these envelopes any way that you want to. You can label them as mortgages. You can label them as kids' clothes. You can label them as school supplies. Whatever category that you use the most, go ahead and make an envelope for it. So when you put the money in, you know that money is there. There's nothing worse than having an emergency and not having money. And that leads me to my next point. Have an envelope that says emergency. Okay. Emergencies happen to all of us, unexpected things. Our tire can go out. We may need to travel somewhere to see a family member. We may lose our job. Emergencies happen. So if we have an envelope for emergencies, we know we have cash on hand. And me and Miss Regina were laughing because when there's no money in the envelope, there's just no money. We don't reach for other envelopes. We don't reach for other cash flows. We just try to find some free fun. Okay. So what I want you to do, get those envelopes. They're cheap. You can go to the Dollar Tree store. It's like $1, I think gives you like maybe 10, 15 envelopes that you can have. Get a pencil, write the names of the categories, you know, nice to haves or need to haves. You can talk about your travel. You could talk about baby needs. Have these envelopes, put the cash in there. And when it's time to pay the bill, take the cash out and pay the bill. Okay. Now, the last point I want to make is saving without a purpose or goal is what I call hoarding. And hoarding is basically, have you seen those shows, Hoarders, where you walk into their house and and you see it, it's like trash everywhere, like newspapers up to their neck. There's there's trash and garbage everywhere. That's what hoarding is. We don't want to do that with our savings. We don't want to just hoard it. We want to give. So when you are spending, think about your child and what you are going to spend your money on. That is going to be the best thing because you just having a bunch of money in a bunch of envelopes is nice, but if your baby is doesn't have the diapers that it needs, if it doesn't have the clothes that it needs, it's not going to work out. It's not going to be in your best interest. So let's move a little bit forward here to questions you should ask yourself. Remember those qualities I talked about very early in the presentation. You need to ask yourself these questions. What are my values and what are my beliefs? As you grow older, you are going to instill this into your child because without these values and these beliefs, you are not going to be able to help them financially. Why? Because my dad used to tell me this. He said, son, if you give an alcoholic $5, he drinks for a day. But if you give an alcoholic $5,000, he may drink himself to death. And what that meant to me was that if you don't instill the values and beliefs around finances and saving and making sure you prepare for tomorrow, your kids, no matter how much money they make, they're not going to last. So we have to break these cycles. We have to say, just because I have the money doesn't mean I have to spend the money. That this money is reserved for the people that I love. So we need to understand our values. Why are we doing this for? Two, who's willing and capable to carry on my legacy? Who in your social circle can be a support for you? It's going to get hard. You know, what are the resources? Are you going to Parent Life? Are you reaching out to Miss Regina? Are you asking her the tough questions in your circle? People like Miss Regina are a very great resource to depend on, to talk to let her know about, okay, I need some help. Can you point me into the right direction? Those are right. Okay. And then last is it in writing? Sometimes it's as simple as putting it on a note paper. I know it's what we used to call it we used to call it the mailbox will. Write down your what you want to get done and mail it to yourself. Do they know how, Miss Regina? Do they know how to mail things? Oh, I don't know if you're
I'm
on.
sure they do. Yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So take one of those envelopes, write a letter to yourself, mail it to yourself, and just leave it. Put your wishes on there. I want my baby to grow up. I want my baby to have all of my money. I want them to be able to do, write a letter, write a nice love letter to yourself and to your child and mail it to yourself. And if anything should happen to you, God forbid, between this time and when the child grows up, they'll be able to open that letter and they'll be able to have some instructions about what to do. But we need to take the time. We need to take the time to see where we're at. Okay. Looks like we're approaching here. So I'm gonna speed through here just a little bit here. Um, we'll skip this one here, Miss Regina. Let's get to student loans. Let's get to the important part as they kind of approach adulthood, because they're going to be approached with student loans. Now, the things to consider. Now, we're thinking about this here. There's two types of scholarships, which is free money. There's merit-based and there's need-based. For some of you, you're going to use both. Some of you could just use one. A needs based means you need it. Financially, you just cannot go to school. And that deters so many of us from actually going to school because I can't afford it. I hear all this stuff about student loans, it being 40, $50,000. I have never even seen 40, $50,000. How can I go to school? Well, I'm here to tell you, we are here to help you. There are scholarships specific for you. I am going to show you something that I think you're really going to like here. Let me share this here with Miss Virginia as well. Let's see here. Here we go. I looked this up. These are 25 great scholarships for young mothers. It literally is a list of money they are willing to give out. And look at it. You need to be a 17-year-old female, a mother with one or more child under 18, and this is your first college experience. Look how much they're giving. $5,000 per year to five different young mothers. That's great. $5,000 of free money. Then we also have one for $1,000. We have another one for $16,000. This is free money. And all you need to do is demonstrate a financial need. Hey, I don't have the money. And many of us can do that, right? Now, you may be thinking, well, you said it was 40, $50,000. These are only $4 or $5,000. What is that going to help me? You know what you can do? You can have as many scholarships as you want. So you can apply to all these different scholarships here and you can pay for your own education. That's what they call needs based. And the majority of them are needs based. Okay. So if you look here, I'm just going down the list a little bit more here. Um, Here, another $1,000 single parent scholarship, $1,000 to help cover college tuition. We have another $1,000 here. So there's money everywhere out there. Now, there's another thing out here. It's called merit based. And what merit based is, I'm going to go back here. Let's see. What merit based is how well you do in school. It's very important that right now, while you're in school, to do well. Give the best grades that you can because it's going to turn into free money. Merit based means how good are your grades? Are you studying hard? And they're going to give you thousands of dollars to go to school because they feel like you really desire it. And I'm telling you, education is going to be your path to success. The more you know, the better you can do. Okay. Another point I want to make here, let me go back. Sorry about that. I want you to talk to the school you want to go to. So many of you are in the Baltimore area. Talk to your local schools. They want to see you successful. I know a lot of times when we apply for things, we think, oh, they're going to reject me or, I have to qualify. There are hundreds of schools and there's hundreds of individuals that want to see you successful. They want to see you have money. So go out there, get that free money, talk to those schools. They're going to help pay for your way through school. So as we kind of wrap up here, I want to leave you with some encouraging words here. One, it comes from Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. No matter what you're going through, no matter what stage you're in, if you want to be successful, get some people on your team. It starts here. Miss Regina asked me to come here. This is a preview. We want to be a resource for you. If you talk about all the different organizations, talk to as many people as you can. In the Bible, it tells you the more advisors you have, the more successful you're going to be. Okay. Also, stewardship. Stewardship is the responsibility of overseeing the protection over something that is considered worth caring for and preserving. Is your child not worth taking care of and preserving? I know it's hard. You're thinking, Mr. Ridgway, I loved your presentation. I barely understood half the stuff that you're talking about. I don't I don't understand any of this stuff. This is the first time I've ever been introduced to it. I'm telling you, Miss Regina is actually streaming this on Facebook. Okay. I hear this from I have a podcast with over 300 episodes. We have over 3,000 subscribers. I hear from them all the time. They go, Mr. Ridgway, this is great information, but you talk so fast. I don't know half the words you're talking. I said, that's for a reason. I want you to go back. I want you to watch this over again, but I want you to watch it slower. I want you to go to Miss Regina, said, Miss Regina, you got the recording. Take it slow, slide by slide. I will be doing you an injustice if I just gave you one piece of information and left you out there. I am giving you everything from start to finish and just take it slowly, one slide at a time. Let me play it over and over and over again. I love Bruce Lee's saying, he says, I am not afraid of the man that has practiced one kick. No, I'm not afraid of the man that knows 1,000 kicks and only practiced them once. I'm afraid of the man who knows one kick and practiced them 1,000 times. So this presentation is not about just watching it one time. Watch it over and over and over again. You're going to be dangerous. You're going to have the financial knowledge that you need and you can be able to be successful. Okay. Now, finally, it says set your own expectations with God on your heart. Okay. God is going to guide you through this journey. Don't give up. It's going to be some tough times. It's going to be scary. It's going to be, you're going to be afraid, but let God guide you and set your expectations with God on your heart. Okay. That's it. I usually do consultations. If you have any questions, comments, this is my website. I have free information all the time. Oh, excuse me. Let me go back here. I have free information all the time. We're talking to Miss Regina. We're going to have a little conversation there. I think I have about 1 minute left. So let me do this. I'm just going to say thank you for listening today. I'm very proud of everyone. I think even Marlena, did I say that right? Oh, yeah, Marella, did I say that right? Miss Regina, say her name for me.
Marlena?
Marlena, thank you for joining us too, because she's actually in the room with us. You're taking the first step. And that's what really matters. You taking the first step is going to change your life. Don't worry about getting it now. It's going to come. Remember those qualities we talked about very early? It's about being patient. If you're uncomfortable right now, that's good. That because you're learning something you did not know. But I promise you, with through difficulty comes ease. And I'm gonna say this last piece. Through difficulty comes ease. So as this feels uncomfortable, as you go, I'll never understand this. I'm never going to get it. The more you're around it, the more you show up, the easier it gets. All right.
Wow, Mr. Ridgway, thank you so, so very much. I am so full right now because I can tell that you shared from your heart. And I couldn't help but think, here I am, a 55-year-old woman. If I had had a Mr. Ridgway when I was a teenager, to give me the advice that he's giving now, I would have made very different choices. So I am so grateful to the
Thank you.
Lord for you. I did want to open it up for any questions, even if you just want to put it in the chat. This is your opportunity to ask Mr. Bridgeway any questions you may have about finance, um, credit cards, student loans, scholarships. He is a wealth of information. So, please utilize this resource, this precious resource. Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question, but first I want to say thank you, Mr. Ridgway,
I'm
for all
sorry,
your information.
can you say it again or type it in the chat? Okay. I think, are you going to type it in the chat?
Okay, so I did have a question, but I wanted to
Okay.
say thank you to Mr. Ridgway for all your information. It really helped me go deeper into financial like stuff I never thought about, stuff I thought I would never understand, which I might still won't, but like this was like one step closer. But my
Amen.
question was, um, when do you think is the right age to get your first credit card?
I, if you've been responsible with the envelopes, manage your money, saving up, I think 18 is okay. It's okay to get it at 18. One thing I would recommend if you're younger is to, if you have like a guardian or a parent who has one, ask them to add you as a signer on their credit card. What that's going to do is give you a jump start on your credit, where creditors are going to say, remember, I told you credit history is about 15% of your credit score. The sooner you start, the better. So you could be 16, 15. You can ask them to add as a co-signer. or not a signer on your credit card, helps you build credit. And then also, remember how you said you never think that you'll get it? When they get their bill, say, "Can I see your bill?" Just just to see what they're spending on, and get familiar with it. So start as early as you can, because when you go on your own and you're trying to get your home, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, 3, 5 years of credit. That's great." So start as young as you can. But once again, we want those credit card management skills. So that's great. That's a great question.
Excellent question. And if I could, Mr. Ridgway, there was something that you had shared with me when you and I were talking earlier
Hmm.
about credit cards,
Yeah.
um, how you're to use them. It's you can use it if you don't have money right in the moment to make the purchase, but when should you be paying that credit card back? Can you speak to that a little bit?
I always like to say you should pay it back as soon as possible, but the main idea is don't spend money you don't have in your account. That's the first thing. Um, if you find yourself using a credit card instead of your savings account, it's time to wait and save up more because the credit card is more of a safety net. I'll tell you kind of a brief history why credit cards kind of came about is because remember when you needed like $10, you asked your mom, like, "Hey, mom, I'm getting paid in 2 weeks. I just need an extra $10." Your mom would do that for you. Well, that gets old after a while because then mom starts questioning your money management skills, even though there's just a time problem. So with credit cards, it's like I can use this money in between the time I get cash for an emergency. So my recommendation is to save up the cash as much as possible. Pay that off about every 10 to 14 days or whenever you can. A lot of people like to wait to the end of the month. But guess what happens at the end of the month, Mr. Jenna? You probably know this. Something else comes up. Like, there's always something that comes up right before you owe the bill, and then it's a vicious cycle. So pay the money as soon as possible. And then you want to do that about, like I said, every 10 to 14 days. Check your balance and see if you can pay it off.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Ridgway?
Okay, I did have
Okay,
one last question.
please.
My other question was like when you was talking about the envelopes and how emergencies and like the 50%, the 30%, 20%. My question was, what if you get tempted to use the emergency money for want instead of a need?
So what happens if you get tempted? I'm sorry, can you clarify the
Yes.
question?
Yeah. So what happened if you get tempted to use the emergency money for a want?
I think the temptation's always there. Even as a professional financial advisor, I'm tempted by things. I have a beautiful, excuse me, I have a beautiful cowboy hat here that's sitting on my desk. That was a temptation. This it took me 3 months to actually buy it because I wanted it so bad. I was afraid that I was going to, spend money to go get it. It wasn't an expensive purchase at all, but it was a want. I don't need a cowboy hat, but I wanted it. So I saved up that time. So one thing I do is whenever I feel tempted to spend money on something, I wait. Because I figure I go, if I wait maybe a month or two, you just give yourself an arbitrary time. And then you say, if I feel the same energy in a month or two, I'll go buy it. That's the best way to do it because guess what happens in a month or two? You find something else you want and you realize you don't care for that thing as much as you thought you were going to pay for it. There's a phenomenon, and I'll tell you this real briefly. It's the scarcity mindset. We feel if we don't get it now, we're going to miss it. But you know where that comes from? It actually comes from us, Miss Regina and our generation. Well, when we went to a store and there was one shirt left, if you didn't get that shirt, there was no way to get, to get it. You couldn't go online. You couldn't go to Amazon. You couldn't search stores in other states. You couldn't get it shipped to you. If you did not get that shirt that day, there is probably zero chance that shirt was going to be back in your size at that time. So we developed this idea like, I need to get this now because it may not be here later. Fortunately, you have that here. You don't have to fall into your temptations because most likely there's going to be something better later, or you can always order it later. So just wait. Wait. Give yourself, if you feel yourself tempted, um, start with a week and then try to move that timeline a little bit further as you can. Maybe a month. A month is really a good time because that's your credit card cycle. Say, I won't buy it this credit card cycle. Let me see how I pay down my credit card. If I pay down my credit card down to zero, I'll think about getting it. That is the best way to put it. So you take care of business first, you still get your item, and you don't have to worry about falling into debt.
Wow. I'm going to use that now because we all get tempted.
We all
It's
do.
not about being a teenager. It's like we're all tempted, particularly once you're working and you're earning money and you see something that you like. But
Yes.
if you wait and see where that temptation falls in about a week or a month,
Yes.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that alone is worth the entire hour. Are there any other questions? So, if not, I want to get to the surprise that we have.
Sure.
Um, and Mr. Ridgway has also agreed to take part, as well as Miss Kenise. We wanted to offer for every teen mom or teen parent who participated in the uh, webinar today to start you with your own savings account. And we're going to put $100 in it to get you started. So that is, I will follow up after the webinar to work with, the bank that you decide to choose, and we'll get the money and put it in there for you because we want you to get a good start in life, beginning to apply the principles that Mr. Ridgway laid out and to practice. And it's okay if you falter a little bit, you just start back again. You don't continue doing what's not helpful. You just say, "Oh, I messed up that time. Now let me get back on track." Am I on track, Mr. Ridgway?
You are. You are on track. We are going to make mistakes. You
Yes,
don't know what you don't know.
right.
This is a big world, but it doesn't have to be intimidating. I want to just congratulate you and thank you for all the hard work that you're putting in for bringing this presentation. Um, because I get asked to speak all over the country, to have presentations like this to help people who have some millionaires. They're millionaires and they still have trouble managing their money. Some of them are living paycheck to paycheck. Some of them are in debt. So these principles are not just for the rich and famous or things that it's for everybody. We all fall, even me. I'm embarrassed because I know better. So, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm perfect. By far, I'm not. But what I am is what they call cost conscious. I am fully aware. And when you're aware, you save half the problems. My dad said it's better to know there's a dead skunk under your house than to smell it in your kitchen. Basically means that you can ignore it all that you want to, but it's going to come into your life. So if you find out the problem, it's okay. We can do something about it, but we can't ignore it. So starting that bank account, I am so happy you're doing that because you're starting a generation and we never know. That next person who has that bank account with $100 for their child and start living right, who knows? They may be better than me. I may be asking them when I'm 70 and showing up to their presentation like, oh, what new things have we learned? So
I love it. I absolutely love it.
yeah.
Mr. Ridgway, I can't thank you enough. I am going to ask that you close us in prayer. But before we do that, excuse me, we have one last webinar coming up in the month of December. I don't know. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we have Mrs. Natasha Battles, who will be joining us on Saturday, December 7th at 10 a.m. And I will actually put the link in the chat so you can register. Her testimony is phenomenal. She became a teen mother at the age of 14. And by the time she was 18, she had four children. She was in an abusive relationship and did not see her way out. But by the help of God and the grace of God, she was able to leave that abusive relationship. Oops, I'm not sharing the right thing. She was able to leave that abusive relationship. And she is now a very successful real estate entrepreneur. I mean, she owns her own business and has acquired wealth, her and her husband, for their family. And so I would encourage every single person to please register for There's Life After Birth webinar that's coming up in on December 7th. So I want to also put that in the chat. We are streaming on YouTube. She's just phenomenal. And I just thank God for meeting all of these phenomenal people like Mr. Ridgway and Natasha Battles and Dr. Reams earlier this year. So with that said, Mr. Ridgway, would you please close us out in prayer?
Sure. Everybody bow your head, close your eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank Miss Regina for putting on this webinar and to touch so many of these teenage mothers' lives. I want to bless the next speakers who are coming up after us and let them know that there is life after birth. These testimonies should touch the hearts and inspire the new generation to create and expand your kingdom from the inside out. All of us are stewards of your gifts. We need to maximize those gifts, show up, show out, and let them know that God is working in our lives. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time, for this experience, and for everybody who participated, for working with the technology to make sure everything went correctly, and that we are inspired to grow and to be better individuals for your sake, not for our sake, not for finances, not for money, not for prestige, not for status, but for your glory. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Ridgway. Wow. I just thank God for you and just pray the Lord's multiplied blessings on your life and your ministry and your work and your family. May you never lack.
Amen.
And may your wealth just continue to increase because you're one of the ones that God can trust with wealth
Amen.
because you're going to do what's best for the kingdom of God.
Amen.
And I can't wait to see how God will continue to use you and expand your ministry and your life. And I believe the Lord's going to do something special for you just because you took the time out of your very busy schedule. This man is very, very busy to spend a little time with parent life to help our teenage parents. Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Ridgway.
Can I leave y'all with something here? It comes from a book called The Psychology of Money, but it was a man who was around a lot of wealthy people. Man had millions and millions of dollars, and they were talking. He didn't have as much money, and he was bragging. The rich man was bragging about all that he had, and he says, "Don't you want to be like that when you grow up?" And he says, "No." And he was like, "Why?" He says, "I have one thing that millionaire does not have." He's like, "What's that?" Enough.
Mm,
When we are
wow.
content, when we have enough, some people are insatiable. They want more money. There's always one more money. There's always one more dollar to acquire. But when we have enough, that's when we have everything. That's when we know God's providing. Have enough. It's okay. If I don't need $1 million, I have enough, and that's what
Man.
we have to grow and expand.
Wow. Thank you for that, Mr. Ridgway.
Amen.
What a perfect way to
Yeah.
end today's workshop. God bless you. God bless you, Marlena, and those who will see this webinar
All
a
right.
little later on because we've recorded it. Have a wonderful day.
Amen. Take care.
Bye-bye.